The courtroom fell silent. My sister stood trembling at the defense table, her lawyer fumbling through papers. The judge's gavel had just echoed across the chamber like a gunshot, but now there was only silence. I sat in the second row, in full uniform, my cap resting on my lap, medals tucked against the crisp blue of my dress jacket. Every whisper, every side-eye in that gallery felt like it was cutting straight into me. And then it happened. His words. The judge paused mid-sentence, eyes narrowing as he leaned forward and stared at me. "Wait," he said slowly, disbelief filling the air. "You're the governor?" My family froze. Their smirks, their whispers, all of it drained out of their faces. Even my father's hand, gripping my mother's, trembled. "My name is Valerie Shaw. I am 34 years old, and I serve as a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. Growing up, my family decided early that I was the disappointment. My older sister, Amanda, was the brilliant one, the golden child. She was the honor student, the one they invested in, the one they believed would change the family's legacy. My younger brother, Derek, was the reckless charmer. He never held a job longer than 6 months, but my parents always found excuses for him. And me? I was the one who wasted her potential by joining the military. I still remember the night before I shipped out to basic training. My mother folded her arms across her chest in the kitchen, lips pursed tight. "You'll regret this," she said, shaking her head. "No family of ours should wear a uniform. You should be in law school like Amanda." I'd stood there in silence, biting down the anger. My father had simply looked away, as though my decision embarrassed him. That was the beginning of the fracture. As the trial dragged on, I felt the tension clawing at me. Amanda had been arrested for embezzlement. Millions siphoned from a nonprofit she managed. It wasn't just a crime, it was a scandal. Yet still, my parents sat behind her in support, whispering encouragement, casting glances of pure venom in my direction. It was as if they wanted me invisible, like always. But the judge saw me. He didn't just recognize me. He recognized the weight of what I'd become. The courtroom smelled faintly of polished oak and sweat. I could hear the rustle of papers, the click of a pen tapping against wood. My pulse thudded against my collarbone as Amanda turned, her lips parting in disbelief. She hadn't even known. None of them had. Because I never told them. I didn't tell them about the promotions, the deployments, the late nights studying defense policy. I didn't tell them about the meetings with senators, the appointments to advisory boards, the climb up a ladder no one believed I could touch. I didn't tell them that while they mocked me for failing, I was building something they could never have imagined. And now, at Amanda's trial, it all came crashing into the open. My mother's voice broke the silence. She whispered sharply, clutching my father's hand. "No, it can't be." But the judge repeated it, firmer this time, for the whole room to hear. "You're Governor Shaw?" I raised my chin. The weight of my medals shifted with the movement. Every eye locked on me, including Amanda's wide, horrified stare. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. My voice didn't tremble. It carried. It filled that room. In that moment, everything shifted. The whispers of my failure collapsed into silence. The courtroom walls seemed to close in, the air thicker, charged. And then Amanda, my sister, the one my family worshipped, snapped her head toward me, eyes blazing with betrayal. She mouthed one word. "Why?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Because they had no idea what was coming. Amanda's eyes burned into me like flames across the courtroom. Her lips quivered, and though no sound came out, I knew the question behind that "why" wasn't about the trial. It was about me. About how I had kept my life, my victories, hidden from them. The defense attorney stammered, papers shaking in his hands. "Your Honor, may we, resume proceedings?" But the judge's gaze lingered on me. "The court acknowledges Governor Valerie Shaw's presence. His voice was steady, commanding. And her service. The words felt like thunder. I wasn't just in the room. I was the room now. My parents looked like strangers to me, their faces pale, as if my very existence had betrayed them. It almost made me laugh. For years, they had erased me from every conversation, every family gathering. They spoke of Amanda's internships, Derek's charm, even their own neighbors' kids. But never me. At Christmas dinners, I remember sitting at the far edge of the table, ignored. Amanda would toast to her law firm promotions while Derek joked about his latest failed business venture. My father would clap him on the back like he'd just built an empire. And when I'd mention flying out on deployment, the table would go quiet, my mother changing the subject in an instant. That silence was their favorite weapon. Now, Amanda was the one in silence, her face twisted with panic as her judge, her supposed protector of fairness, acknowledged me. She had counted on this trial being her stage. She hadn't expected me to be standing in the wings with power she couldn't touch. I leaned back in the wooden bench, the fabric of my uniform stretching across my shoulders. The air was cool but heavy, the faint scent of disinfectant clinging to the courtroom walls. I let the weight of the moment sink in. My mother suddenly broke. She leaned forward, whispering harshly toward Amanda. "Don't worry, sweetheart. This doesn't change anything." But her voice cracked on the last word. Didn't change anything? It changed everything. The prosecution cleared their throat, dragging the trial back into focus. "Your Honor, the state has presented evidence of financial fraud exceeding $2 million. The defendant—" Amanda slammed her palm on the table. "I'm not guilty," she blurted, her voice cracking. The sound reverberated across the courtroom. Gasps echoed from the gallery. I couldn't help it. My chest tightened with something between anger and pity. This was the sister who once stood in our driveway, pointing at me in front of our neighbors, mocking, "She's playing soldier. She'll be crawling back when she fails out." The memory burned in me like gasoline on open flame. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Shaw, you will restrain yourself." His eyes flicked toward me again, a subtle acknowledgement. And that flick was all it took for Amanda to crumble further. She turned back toward my parents, her voice desperate. Tell him I didn't do it. You know I didn't do it." But my father stared straight ahead, lips pressed tight. My mother wrung her hands together, eyes darting between Amanda and me. For once, they didn't rush to her rescue. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The sound of the bailiff's boots echoed as he stepped forward, reminding everyone of order. The wood of the benches creaked as the gallery shifted uneasily, whispers starting again, soft but sharp. Amanda caught her breath and finally glared at me. "You think you're better than me?" she hissed under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear. I didn't reply. I just sat taller, letting the light catch the polished metal on my chest. Because the truth was, this wasn't about me being better. It was about the lies. The years of being told I was less. The years of them saying I'd failed. And now, in front of all of them, the balance of power was shifting. Amanda's lawyer leaned down, whispering frantically in her ear. She jerked away, glaring at me once more, and I knew in that instant. This trial wasn't just about her crimes anymore. It was about us, about the war between sisters, and it was far from over. The gavel struck again, sharp and final. The courtroom buzz dulled into a low murmur, like the static of a storm waiting to break. I could feel Amanda's rage crawling across the aisle toward me, her eyes stabbing holes through my uniform. For the first time in my life, she wasn't the star, and she hated me for it. The prosecutor presented more documents, bank statements, contracts, signatures. His voice carried steady authority, filling the chamber. But I barely listened. My ears caught every breath from my family behind Amanda, every shuffle of their restless feet, every hissed whisper they thought I couldn't hear. "She planned this," my mother muttered. "She timed this moment to humiliate Amanda." Humiliate? No, truth didn't humiliate. It revealed. I shifted slightly on the bench, my metals clinking faintly. The sound echoed louder than it should have, and my father's eyes snapped to me, cold and accusing. Memories bled into me. Years ago, when I earned my first commendation medal, I'd mailed a photo home. Amanda had called me 2 weeks later, laughing. "Cute costume," she'd said over the phone, "but when you're ready to do something real with your life, I'll help you get into law school." My chest tightened as the memory faded. Back then, I swallowed my anger. Tonight, sitting in that courtroom, I didn't. The defense tried to poke holes, but Amanda's voice cracked too easily, her desperation leaking through every denial. I could see the sweat beating at her hairline, the way she tapped her manicured nails against the defense table. It was the same rhythm she used when we were kids, when she lied about breaking things and blamed them on me. She'd always been convincing. Until now. The judge finally leaned back, rubbing his temple. His eyes flicked to me again, subtle, but enough for Amanda to notice. Her voice rose, trembling. "She's doing this," Amanda cried, pointing at me now. The courtroom gasped, and even her lawyer paled. "She's orchestrating all of this because she's jealous. She wants to ruin me." The gallery erupted in murmurs. The bailiff stepped closer, hand hovering near his belt. I stayed still. My posture never broke. But inside, the words cut deeper than I expected. Jealous? The irony nearly suffocated me. I thought of the endless nights, far from home, dust storms stinging my face in the Middle East. I thought of briefing rooms filled with generals who didn't care about my last name, only my results. I thought of the battles no one in my family had ever seen, sacrifices they'd never acknowledge. Jealous? No. I had built a life far beyond her world. And yet, her accusation made me realize she was terrified. Terrified that for once, she wasn't untouchable. The courtroom air grew hotter, heavier. A fluorescent light above buzzed faintly, flickering in the corner. Every detail magnified as Amanda's world crumbled in real time. Her lawyer begged her to stop, but Amanda shook him off, leaning forward with fire in her eyes. "Say something, Valerie," she snapped. "Tell them you hate me. Tell them you've always wanted me to fall." My throat tightened. Everyone turned to me, waiting. I rose slowly from the bench. My uniform stretched crisp across my frame, every metal catching the light, every stitch a testament to battles won and endured. The silence pressed against me, suffocating, waiting for my words. I opened my mouth. But the courtroom door banged open. A voice rang out from the back. "Governor Shaw, the press is outside. They know." Every head whipped around. Amanda's face drained of color, and I realized her trial was no longer just hers. It was about to become mine. The heavy doors groaned as they swung open, and the courtroom's oxygen seemed to vanish. Cameras clicked faintly in the hallway, muffled voices of reporters spilling into the room before the bailiff slammed the door shut again. Amanda's eyes darted wildly, panic searing her face. For once, her perfect composure shattered. She knew exactly what the press meant: exposure, scandal, shame. And the worst part for her? They weren't there for her anymore. They were there for me. The judge adjusted his glasses, tapping his pen on the bench. "We will recess until tomorrow," he declared, the gavel echoing like a drumbeat. Court adjourned. The sound of chairs scraping against polished wood filled the air. Whispers surged, louder, more frantic. My parents rose first, rushing to Amanda's side, shielding her as though she were still the golden child, as though she hadn't siphoned millions and destroyed lives. But their eyes never touched me. They never asked why the press wanted me. I walked slowly toward the aisle, boots striking the floor with measured rhythm. The sound echoed, steady, unyielding. Reporters pressed against the glass windows outside, cameras flashing like lightning against the darkening evening. Amanda clutched at my mother's arm. Her voice trembled, but her words cut sharp. You knew this would happen. You waited for the cameras. You wanted to humiliate me in front of the world. I stopped cold, turning just enough to meet her eyes. You humiliated yourself, I said quietly. All I did was show up. Her lips trembled, and for a moment, I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen in years. Fear. Outside the courthouse, the air smelled of rain, damp pavement cooling beneath my heels. Microphones thrust toward me the instant I stepped through the doors. Governor Shaw, did you anticipate your sister's arrest? Governor, will this affect your standing with the state legislature? Governor, how do you respond to your family's public claim that you failed? The word failed burned in my ears, though it came from a stranger's lips. It was the same word my family had wielded like a whip for years. I straightened my shoulders, rain beginning to mist across the brim of my cap. Failure, I said evenly, my voice cutting through the storm of questions, is defined by those too blind to see the truth. My record speaks for itself. Good night. The microphones dropped. The reporters surged. And yet, I felt calm. Back at my hotel room that night, the silence was deafening. I sat on the edge of the bed, uniform still on, tie loosened, staring at the skyline through rain-speckled glass. The city lights shimmered like scattered fireflies against the night. But memories pushed in again, uninvited. I remembered my 21st birthday. Amanda had given a speech in our living room, bragging about her law school acceptance. My parents clapped, tears in their eyes. When it came time to cut the cake, I'd quietly slipped out, uniform bag packed, a bus ticket waiting. No one noticed I was gone until hours later. That night, I swore I'd rise high enough that silence could never erase me again. And here I was, governor, recognized, seen. But at what cost? My phone buzzed. A message. From Derek. We need to talk. Alone. I frowned, my stomach tightening. Derek never reached out. He only showed up when he wanted money or forgiveness. And yet, there it was. Another message followed. It's about Amanda. And Mom and Dad. You don't know everything. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the glass like fists demanding entry. My reflection stared back at me, tired eyes, uniform still gleaming. I picked up the phone. My hand tightened around it, pulse pounding. Because if Derek had secrets, if there was more to this family's betrayal, then Amanda's trial was only the beginning. The rain was relentless. I could hear it hammering the hotel window, each drop like a warning. Derek's message glowed on my screen, the words burning through me. You don't know everything. I paced the carpet, boots still on, the faint scent of damp wool from my uniform filling the air. Derek had always been the wild card, the charming liar, the one who talked his way out of every disaster. But tonight his tone was different, urgent, almost desperate. I called him. He picked up on the second ring, his voice hushed, jagged. Val, you can't let Amanda take the fall alone. My grip on the phone tightened. What are you talking about? There was a pause, then a sharp inhale. It wasn't just her. My heart pounded. The room seemed to tilt as his words sank in. I thought of Amanda sitting at that defense table trembling. I thought of my parents clutching her hand, whispering comfort. Had they known? Derek, I said slowly, forcing my voice to stay level. What did you do? Another pause. Then, quieter. Not just me. Mom. Dad. They were in it too. The silence that followed was deafening. The hum of the hotel heater, the patter of rain, even my own breath. All of it faded under the weight of his confession. Memories came rushing back, sharper than glass. My mother's sudden interest in Amanda's nonprofit fundraisers. My father's late-night calls, always behind closed doors. Derek's smug grin when he suddenly bought a new truck last year, claiming he'd won big in a card game. I hadn't seen it then. I didn't want to. Now it all made sense. Why tell me this now? I demanded, my voice harder. Because, Derek whispered, they'll let Amanda burn if it saves them. They always will. And she knows it. That's why she's unraveling. His tone cracked, raw. She doesn't hate you, Val. She's terrified. Terrified they'll leave her behind, the way they left you. My chest tightened, anger and pity colliding in my veins. You were part of it, I hissed. You stole too. A long pause. Then his voice, low. Yes. But I'm giving you the truth. Do what you want with it. The line went dead. I stood frozen, the phone heavy in my hand. My reflection stared back at me from the rain-streaked glass. Eyes sharp, shoulders squared, jaw clenched. It wasn't just Amanda. It was all of them. The family who called me a failure. The family who erased me. The family who smiled in public while building rot in private. The betrayal ran deeper than I ever imagined. The next morning, I walked back into the courthouse. The air was thick with tension, the scent of stale coffee and floor polish hanging heavy. Reporters lined the steps outside, their voices sharp, questions piercing the gray air. Inside, Amanda looked wrecked. Her makeup barely covered the shadows under her eyes. My parents sat behind her, stone-faced, but I saw the fear etched into their features. Derek wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. As the judge entered, gavel cracking once more, Amanda turned her head toward me. And this time, when our eyes met, her look wasn't fury. It was pleading. The prosecution rose, ready to continue. But I barely heard them. Derek's words played on loop in my mind. Mom, Dad. They were in it too. I gripped the wooden edge of the bench, nails biting into the surface. My pulse thundered, breath sharp. I had a choice. Expose them all, or let Amanda carry the weight. My jaw locked as I made my decision. And when I stood, the entire courtroom turned to watch. The room stilled the moment I rose. Wooden benches creaked as people leaned forward, whispers slicing through the air like knives. Even the judge's hand froze above his notes, his eyes locking on me. Amanda's gaze widened, her lips parted in disbelief. My parents stiffened behind her, my mother clutching my father's arm so tightly her knuckles whitened. I cleared my throat. My voice carried steady, but inside my chest, a storm raged. Your Honor, I began, every syllable sharp. This trial cannot proceed on lies of omission. The truth isn't what it seems. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The prosecutor frowned, flipping through his files. Amanda's lawyer leaned forward, sensing a lifeline. And my parents? Their faces drained of color. I turned, scanning the room. Every eye bore down on me. My medals glinted beneath the fluorescent lights, each one a reminder of battles survived, battles more honest than this courtroom war. This case has been framed as Amanda Shaw alone defrauding the nonprofit. I paused, letting the silence sharpen. But evidence suggests others were involved, individuals who profited behind the scenes. Amanda's head jerked toward our parents. Her lips trembled. My father's jaw clenched, and my mother shook her head frantically, mouthing no. The judge narrowed his eyes. Lieutenant Colonel Shaw, are you asserting that you have knowledge of broader misconduct? Yes, Your Honor. My throat tightened, but my voice never broke. Including members of my own family. The eruption was immediate. The gallery burst into shouts, the bailiff slamming his hand against the bench to restore order. Cameras outside the windows flashed brighter, sensing the storm within. Amanda's lawyer leapt to his feet. Your Honor, we request an immediate review of discovery. This revelation changes the case entirely. My parents looked like statues turned to ash. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears, whispering, How could you? My father stared at me with pure venom, the same venom he had wielded when he told me years ago, You will never amount to anything. And for the first time I stared right back without flinching. Memories clawed their way in. Christmas mornings where Amanda opened gifts of jewelry while I got socks. Graduation dinners where Derek's failures were toasted as resilience. The countless nights I called from bases overseas only to be met with silence on the other end. All those years I begged for their approval. Now I didn't need it. The judge tapped his gavel again, his voice booming. Order! Order! He turned back to me. Governor Shaw, are you prepared to provide documentation or testimony to support these claims? I raised my chin. Yes, I have records, and I'll provide them. Amanda sagged into her chair, tears streaming silently. For the first time, her anger at me softened. Her eyes, bloodshot, locked onto mine with something unfamiliar. Not hatred, not envy, gratitude. Because I had pulled the curtain down, not just on her, but on all of them. The judge recessed the court in chaos. Reporters swarmed outside, their voices a storm. But I barely heard them. I walked out into the rain, letting the cold drops soak into my uniform. This wasn't the end. There would be hearings, investigations, consequences. My family would be dragged through the mud they'd created. But I had made peace with it. For years, they told me I failed. They told the world I was invisible. Now the world saw me, and them. As I stood on those courthouse steps, rain sliding down my face, I breathed in deeply. My chest felt lighter, as though decades of silence had been burned away. And I whispered the only words that mattered. The truth destroys every lie.